this computer. Okay, really briefly, one of the open mic topics for today's Open Library community call, it's April 26th, Tuesday, 2022, is talking about the top main menu here and the elements that are on it, how we are tracking analytics, or if we're tracking analytics. And then also we want to investigate a similar component on the books page, which I'll open up in a new tab, which is our main navigation, which may also need analytics. So just to give an idea of what I'm talking about here, if we were to right click on one of the items on openlibrary.org in our carousel, one of the book items, we'll see that in the HTML, let's see where we have it. We have a field, a property called data-ol-link-track, and it has a value, which is a string. In the first part of the value, it says CTA click, and then there's a vertical pipe, and then read. This is a field that gets sent to an anonymized version of our Google Analytics, anonymized because we basically take the click and we route it to a proxy, and that proxy is able to assign a random IP for that patron without identifying who that patron is. And then what ends up happening with that analytic, we can call it pixel or that event, is it gets registered in an event called CTA click, and the type of CTA click in this case is read. Read could also be, I think, borrow or preview. There are some other values for this event CTA click. But all of that analytics, the Google Analytics tracking, comes from adding the property data-ol-link-track. What this allows us to do is learn, for instance, how many times is the read button being clicked throughout the website. We also might be able to do things like determine how often a certain carousel is clicked, or different components on the page, how often each one of these cards are clicked. I think if I were to right click, these cards have data-ol-link tracking. The component is called the onboarding carousel click, or the event is onboarding carousel click, and the type is full text search. And then if I were to right click on this one, we would see that it has a different tag of still onboarding carousel click, but librarians is the value. However, the main navigation for our website.
A quick addendum, Mick.
Please.
Just for the wording. So that's the Google event, the Google Analytics event category, and the Google Analytics event action. Those are the words in Google Analytics.
The category, and then after the pipe is the event action. Cool. Okay, awesome. On the main navbar for the website, if we inspect the element, we'll see that these components do not have that data-ol property, and therefore we don't know how often these things are clicked. And so what we would like to do is make sure that the whatever this browse button is or ends up becoming, and this more button, and probably also the account dropdown, receives on the action itself some sort of analytics tracking. So I would assume it would be on the A tags, because these won't. Oh, the analytics are triggered from JavaScript, right? So we can make it so that if they click the tab genie, that this will emit an action.
Yeah, we can attach the data-ol-link tracks to anything. So we should also be able to attach it to the details summary tag there as well to get those handled.
Okay, perfect. Right, right here, the details open for these sections.
Probably the summary specifically, because if we do it on the whole details tag, it might also register when a user clicks on the floating menu, and then we'll get double events for the.
Got it. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, right. So we can take the data-ol property, which we showed below, and then add that to the summary of each one of these components. Similarly, I think we want to do the same thing to our main page navigation. So on our book page, we have links to the different parts of the page, and we'd like to know how often these are being clicked. So for each one of these LIs or the anchor tags within them, we'll want to add that data OL property and have some sort of, I think we have an issue for this, but it would look something like nav bar tab as the category, and then the event action would be something like overview or details or reviews corresponding to the different tabs here. I think we probably came up with, nav bar. We probably came up with a better naming scheme in the GitHub issue, but that's the context for what we're talking about here. One other change that we talked about making is that when I am logged in, I have lots of options under my account menu. And in fact, if I go to the mobile view, we have a header component here, which has kind of the avatar and a hamburger menu. One thing that I think is already in progress is someone is adding padding so that the avatar and the hamburger are kind of separated.
Thank you, Konstantina.
Yes, thank you, Konstantina.
Yes, me and Vasily have solved it, and we have opened a pull request.
Oh, I'll take a look at that. I think I'm assigned to it.
Yeah, with CSS this time and not JavaScript commands.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the other thing that we're exploring is when we're not logged in. So if I go down to a logout, oh, interesting. On mobile, there is a hamburger.
Yes.
But there isn't on desktop, right?
Correct. Yeah, so the hamburger is also, I think it's also, I'm not sure we can add the hamburger unless we remove the more menu, because there wouldn't be anything to put in there, I don't think.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think one proposal is that for the desktop view, that rather than having a more menu, that more would just become a hamburger, just like we see in the mobile view. So that all the way on the right, we would have this hamburger, even for the desktop view, instead of more. And then one question is, when I'm logged in or when I'm not logged in, what shows up right here? And perhaps for now, the only thing that shows up if you're not logged in is browse. And if we are logged in, then rather than showing browse and more would show up under the account hamburger, right? So I think Drini, is it right that the idea is if I'm logged in, that I would see the same icon here and the same menu items in mobile and in desktop?
So that's sort of the question, I think, of what we do on desktop, because I think the current parallel is there is no hamburger on desktop because the sections are in the header bar. So the account settings, the browse, and the other basically are their own top level headings. So there's no hamburger menu. If we have a hamburger menu, we could duplicate it. So the hamburger menu here duplicates the three sections. So the user settings or the user options, the browse menu, and then the more menus at the bottom if you scroll further.
Yeah.
So it's a, yeah.
My hypothesis, also looking at how Goodreads and other services deal with this, is that the number one action our Google Analytics shows is that people are looking for something like my library, which has their loans and their reading log and everything else. It's kind of like their main account page. And then instead of more, having something like browse. And then the items and more would just go under the hamburger menu.
Stuff, and then Lisa because I think it's less applicable on mobile.
Yeah, Lisa.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is something we want to consider, but also one thing that Goodreads has on their on the app, it's the app, not the site. So maybe I'm misspeaking, but there's limited, like you cannot do as much. There's limited functionality. So there's a simpler interface because you can't, for example, look at all of the other editions, or you can't edit, or so I don't know if that's something we would want to do, or that requires an app rather than just a mobile view.
Yeah. I don't know if we exactly have the same constraint. Really, the only difference is clicking on having a button for my library is confusing if someone doesn't have an account.
Mhm.
Yeah, and for the discussion, I think it might be best if we just focus on desktop view, because the
Mhm.
mobile view menus are just I don't think they're as important. Oh, I think you have to change them again. So yeah, let's for the moment just focus on here. So the proposal that Mike is suggesting is changing the two options up there to be my library and browse, as opposed to the current browse and more.
Right, yeah, that wouldn't really,
Pardon, Lisa?
yeah, nothing, I'm talking to myself.
Do you have thoughts on that change, Lisa?
I think it works fine. Yeah.
And then this, if we were to do that, then presumably this clicking action would give us the same hamburger account command drop down.
Yeah, I
Library.
think that's better.
Sorry, well, as what were you saying?
If I so if the other change potentially is if we click on our picture, this would do the same thing as the mobile hamburger account, which has more and all the other stuff.
Yep, that would be a way to do it. Yeah, and we would have all the my library options would be duplicated between the two.
Yep.
Yeah, can you open up what was the more menu again?
Yes. What was the more this?
Yeah, so these are the options which would get sort of pushed down into a potentially less accessible spot. If we have it in a hamburger menu, I think that's probably fine. Yeah, I think Goodreads has like my books, browse, and community as their three
Yeah.
headings.
I also think we might want to, rather than having this be a drop down, just have it be a button. So clicking on my library just brings you to like your loans, but you're on your account dashboard. And then if someone does want to click on their account, they can jump to the exact page.
I think I like that. Yeah, I think I like that.
Okay. Lisa, did you have another comment? I see your hand still raised.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. So I think number one, we'll add the analytics to the book page navbar and to the headers. And it seems like the second change that we'll make on desktop is rather than this being browse and more, it'll be my library and browse. My library potentially will just be a button rather than a dropdown. And everything that is currently under my library would just go in the account sidebar. And the account sidebar, instead of being this list right here, the account sidebar would just be copied from the mobile view, which looks like this.
Yeah, in terms of the UX, I can't decide if it should be a floating menu or if we should try to bring the entire like slide out thing here.
Yeah, how does this? I feel fine about literally just having the same
Interaction. I think so as well, because I think it was easier to implement as well.
Yeah, and I think it works better.
And because we have like headings and subheadings, which it would be kind of long if we had a floating menu that was that large. So I think having a sidebar makes sense.
Yeah. The only thing that I might change is the only thing I might change is removing browse from this menu. If browse is always going to be right here.
I'm not sure. I'm torn on that one. I think it is kind of nice having them all be in one place.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should get feedback from the rest of the community. But I'm going to stop record because I feel like we kind of have covered all the points. And
just to summarize real quick before you stop. So then the proposal, yeah, is we're going to create an issue for adding analytics to those two components. Yeah. And then the other piece is changing browse to my library, more to browse, and adding the hamburger menu on desktop. And I think those things, how can we split those up, or do they all have to happen in like one pull request? I think they have to happen in one pull request, right? Because we can't get rid of the more.
I don't think so. I think that the hamburger can happen first.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so first we'll make the hamburger there, and then that will kind of duplicate the pieces, and then we remove the more button. Perfect. I love that.
Yeah. One remaining question is: do we just have browse here
when the user is logged out?
Yeah.
So I think on the what's the question? I guess so. That seems like a good thing. We could have my library and it redirects them to log in with some like that would be probably like a nice little experience. So if we have my library and it clicks and shows you like what my library can do for you, and then suggest the user to log in or register. But that's probably beyond the scope of this.
Yeah, that might be beyond. The other thing we could do, which I don't think we should, is moving login or sign up here.
Yeah, that's an option. That's kind of what the mobile view does. In the My Library section of the sidebar, it shows the login and the sign up buttons. Or if you
right, yeah.
I think this is fine for now. We can come back. We can revisit.
Okay, so maybe there's just one thing, or there should probably be something else. But I think it can just be help or something. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, then I am going to stop sharing and then also stop recording.